Hello everyone, it's Mike Levin, Monday morning, June 27th, at about 9 a.m., heading into work, and we had a really wonderful weekend in the Catskills. I had some guests up there with me, I believe for the first time, taking advantage of the double unit we have up there, and Addie had a wonderful time with her friend Micah, and the colony across the street from us is suddenly getting a huge infusion of new blood right from my own neighborhood here in Inwood, and I'm starting to affectionately refer to the two colonies up there as upstate Inwood. And this morning, heading into work, getting ready to write my weekly report on my SEO progress at my new job and the projects in play. And I've been going through a tool recalibration or replatforming process that's been just wonderful. And for many years now, I've been avoiding the giant reset button of technology getting pressed on me, which I suffered through in an enormous way when the Amiga computer went away from Commodore. And then again in a, I guess, equally significant way when Active Server Page went away from Microsoft. So ever since, I've been jealously guarding my investment into new technologies and platforms and languages, and I've gravitated towards Linux, Python, Vim, and Git, as any followers of my publishing probably know by now. So what's my replatforming? It's onto a few tools related to these that live quite nicely, I guess, within that stack, and are beginning to constitute a new secret weapon. So on secret weapons a moment before I talk about Jupyter Notebooks, Pandas, and Anaconda. I find that it's nice to have secret weapons in tech. It's nice to be able to do things others can't do more quickly, more smoothly, without diving into the deep research. You know, and anyone with sufficient intelligence can do almost anything in tech, because you dive into the new tools, you do the research, and you do the work. The difference with secret weapons is do the work spontaneously, as if these tools were an extension of your body, and the type of things that you do are just a little bit more difficult, a little bit more complex, a little bit more well thought out than you could do if you were taking things up from scratch. So it all has to do with familiarity and, you know, spontaneous, comfortable use of your tools. And when platforms change, as they tend to do in tech, you lose abilities, you lose secret weapons, and you're swimming against the tide, and it's a bad place to be. So how do you swim with the tide? Well, you choose the right base platforms that you believe are never going to go away, because they're part of the fundamental fabric of tech these days, modern tech. I mean, there's so much kinds of tech, but what we're talking about is really information processing, data processing, infotech technologies that often tie into web publishing, data monitoring, data collection, data transformation, and data publishing. And these are the tools that I use in that area, that mostly is for the field of search engine optimization, but very much also in the field of publishing. So data is important, and I started doing my homework and researching where I could have data secret weapons as the field of SEO gradually and probably permanently transforms into something that is a lot more difficult. The techniques that you have to employ are a lot more sophisticated. Dare I say, the cat and mouse game with Google is much more in favor of the cat, who has billion-dollar infrastructures and armies of PhDs on their side, trying to make the users of their product forever more happy and forever less subject to the spam offerings of publishers who are trying to step into their paths, who are in the same field as me of SEO. So the first step is to have something worth publishing and to feel really good about it. So I got out of the agency world here in New York City, where most of the SEO jobs are, because in agency world you're a hired gun and you work on whatever properties you're assigned by your agency, and you could be selling whatever. I've been very fortunate along these lines with recent things I had to promote, being like SAP, things that are kind of close to my heart, technology tools for managing data. But it's not always that way, and I decided to really focus on the geek world, where, you know, my heart is, and geek publications and geek tech, and opening the door to others to sort of come in. So I hang my hat now at a technology publisher, and so now the stakes are even higher. I can't be an old school SEO going gradually obsolete. It just won't fly here. I gotta be a data scientist. I know it's yet another buzzword and yet another bandwagon that everyone's jumping onto, but when you look at the kinds of information data projects that an SEO has to do in order to say, do this because it's going to be effective, we see competitors doing this well, and here are the most likely things you need to do, avoiding excessive correlation errors, because it's all about finding correlations, and of course we all know correlation does not mean causation. So long pages would be a wonderful data point here. Google is tending to favor longer page lengths because it's an easy data point to measure. It's something you can look at, like the old school metrics of like keyword density and all these other things that are easy to look at on a per page basis. So my field tries to look for all these correlations, and indeed the pages that tend to be performing well on their keywords tend to be these longer pages, and I believe tend to be higher in the site hierarchy. It takes fewer clicks to find these long pages than it used to be in the field, where you could bury it deep within the site, and as long as your keywords were very closely aligned to what the search user typed in, and for lack of any better matches out there on the big old internet, that buried, often short page would in fact be served. And those were the days of long tail marketing, and I certainly contributed my share to encouraging others to work that way with my Hittail product that essentially looked at all your search hits coming in and the keyword data when it was once upon a time provided, and suggested what you ought to write about to bring more traffic in, based on the premise that someone, you know, surfed pretty aggressively in order to find you, and so everyone else must not have been satisfying the searcher because they went to page 2 or page 3 or whatever and searched to find you. And so with some deliberate targeting, you're sure to perform better. These days, Hittail has to draw its data, like everyone else, out of Google Search Console, previously Webmaster Tools, through their API. That's fine. They give some really good data there. It's not a bad alternative to parsing out all your referrer data once you know the trick to do it and get comfortable with OAuth login and all that stuff. So that's the way I tend to be doing that part of the business right now. But it was very clear I had a tool deficit. and I started listening to Michael Kennedy's Talk Python to Me podcasts. And they're up to like 50 plus episodes, and each one is so fascinating and dives into such depth about some nuanced aspect of Python, the environment, the community, the third-party packages. And three of them stood out above the rest, and they work very much hand in hand as a set and a seamless part of my existing Linux, Python, Vim, and Git stack. And in fact, one of them gives a great sidestepping ability across platforms, so it doesn't have to be Linux all the time. So I spend a lot of time on my Linux virtual machine platform, mostly to have a controlled Python code execution environment that works exactly the same way, whether you're on Windows, Mac, or a Linux desktop. And that criteria, that necessity for a consistent, reliable execution environment where third-party packages always installed the correct way and resolve their dependencies the correct way, is a common need in the field of data science. And the company, I believe it's called Continuum. I get the companies confused. There's a couple in the mix. One does Jupyter Notebook, the other does Anaconda. I'm pretty sure it's Continuum does Anaconda, but Anaconda is a collection of mostly Python packages, and they throw a few others in like R, where they deal with all those dependency resolution issues and all those installation and configuration issues, so that when you're doing stuff in Python using pandas, it runs pretty much the same way no matter what platform you're on, and you can get it all working quite easily. You install Anaconda, it installs all these difficult to install dependencies, specifically NumPy, that has a compilation process during its install to optimize it for performance for the hardware it's running on and to get compiled C code for performance, and et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't believe in Anaconda at first because my solution was to just use the Linux platform where everything installs correctly and use virtual machines to have the Linux platform. And that was great until such time as I realized that, I don't want to keep the Linux virtual machine running on my laptop all the time. It's too brittle. So Microsoft announced, the Ubuntu Bash Linux shell is coming to Windows this summer. We're in the middle of summer already. Where is it? So I figured Anaconda was going obsolete and I wouldn't look at it, but then I kept listening to these podcasts and realized that it's not just Anaconda. Anaconda is the preferred way to install Jupyter Notebook, previously IPython Notebook, which is the second of the third tools, Anaconda being the first that I want to talk about. Jupyter Notebook is a web-based experimental environment to run Python interactively. I believe that product is called a REPL Run, Execute, Print Loop environment. You don't hear it very often except in the Python world and maybe a couple of others, where the ability to iteratively experiment rapidly is actually very important. It's surprisingly unimportant in many languages, very important in Python. And the scientific community decided they wanted to do it way better than was currently supported under Python, and with a tool that made it into notebooks. What are notebooks? Notebooks are almost like histories of your work, almost like Git in how it preserves almost edit by edit history of what you're doing. But instead of back in time as you make edits and saves, which you can do under Notebook with checkpoints, its real value is in how your program linearly, top to bottom, actually has the ability to step in anywhere, execute little blocks, slide them around up and down. When your code breaks, stepping in and inspecting the value of the variables at that moment in time, just like you would with an IDE. And in fact, in many ways, it replaces an IDE. And I never liked IDEs, but I liked a lot of the advantages that IDEs gave, like inspecting the variables, at the time the program stopped running. I'm not a big fan of tab completion, showing you your method names that are available when you start typing. Command line completion, a lot like in the Unix bash shells, where you hit tab and it finishes typing the closest matching file name on your file system in the path you're indicating. So IPython Notebook or Jupyter Notebook has all that tab completion built in, all that IDE stuff built in, but doesn't force you to live and work in an IDE environment. It's very delightful, and it was one of the missing pieces I felt, because in conjunction with Anaconda, it's always running on your local machine instead of a server, giving you your local machine advantage. Access to perhaps faster processors than a cheap cloud server you might be using. Access to your local file system, so you can load and parse files and write them back out without having to have any FTP or Dropbox or other file transfer mechanism in the picture, which is very important when your data gets big, let me tell you. And then the final tool is Pandas, which is just basically an easier API to NumPy that supports a lot more of the kinds of data labels and transformations that data scientists need. And I'm already using it to do stuff that I've only dreamt of in, say, Excel environment, spreadsheet environments, or even SQL. So you get with Pandas the elusive dream of doing everything that you do in SQL, but from diverse data sources. It doesn't have to be in SQL tables. You don't have to import anything to SQL tables. You just populate some Python objects with your data, and now suddenly you can do all that magic, like joining those tables, adding new columns with scalar values of one of your prior columns, so that you can do hierarchical column sorting, which was very, very useful last week. And yeah, Pandas, Anaconda, and Jupyter Notebook all sort of combine to become a seamless part of my existing stack, no reset button press, and pushes me over that edge where I'm going to be able to have my secret weapons again, where everything starts to become easy, and the things that I do quickly, that I'm asked to do, don't have to be front-loaded with a large degree of research and experimentation. Just do it. Everything that I'm asked to do might be the fourth or fifth time I've been asked to do something similar, and they're all data science tasks, much more so than traditional SEO tasks. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. That's my plan, to do interesting, wonderful stuff here on the job, and to make my video and blogging content for you all the more interesting. So thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you soon, and don't forget to subscribe.